The Bosnian government of President Alija Izetbegović is understandably jaundiced about what any agreements mean nowadays. Max Utrich of the Australian Broadcasting Corporation
was in the battered Bosnian capital of Sarajevo. He was granted quite exceptional access to the beleaguered Bosnian president, Mr. Alija Izetbegović, the elected leader who, in the eyes of the world, represents the aspirations of Bosnia's Muslims. Here's his report, and later, Lord Owen.
Courtesy of the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, the President of the sovereign state of Bosnia-Herzegovina lands at Sarajevo Airport. Alija Izetbegović displays little sign of the humiliation he must feel.
Hello, President. Pleased to meet you.
His reliance on blue helmet transport and security doesn't end here. Even the short trip from the airport to the presidential building must be made inside UN armour. In Sarajevo, they call this Sniper Alley. There are Serbian marksmen hidden in the shattered high-rises, and heavy guns menace from the hills behind. It's the most dangerous stretch of road in the most dangerous city in the world. A shell of a capital in a shadow of a country. The President has just returned from Athens, where Radovan Karadzic, the Bosnian Serb leader, has initialed the Vance-Owen peace plan. The world outside is heaving a collective sigh of relief, hoping that the horrors that have dominated its screens are at last about to go away, without the need to risk the lives of young men from other nations' armies. But for the people of Sarajevo, the horrors are daily reality. Those who've suffered a dreadful winter without electricity or water still have to queue for hours for meagre rations, knowing that at any moment a shell might come crashing in. Even in the heart of the city, there's a constant risk of sniper fire. Any street exposed to the Serb-held hills is a danger zone. The only commodity here not in short supply is hope.
I don't know, just hope is keeping me alive, you know, that's all. I don't know, these bosses from mountain doing us all 1.5 years, you know. We just hate it, we just young people doesn't want that.
The hope is the only things what
have
a people in Sarajevo or in all Bosnia and Herzegovina.
But at the back door of Alija Izetbegovic's presidency, the door facing the Serb guns, they were filling more sandbags, a sign not of hope but of pessimism born of bitter experience. While inside, their leader was writing a letter to Lord Owen. He had no confidence in the Serbs' good faith.
Naravno, mislim, trebaju sada da, ako potpišu ovo, i ako kažu, eto, mi ćemo taj provod mirovni plan, onda treba da obustava vatre, da blokada. A oni će vjerovatno mjesto toga, pošto im je to manje to košta, oni će vjerojatno mjesto toga nametnuti jedan drugi program.
Zajednička
vlada, predsjedništvo, tako dalje, a nek sve stoji na svom mjestu. Pa ga naprijed upozorim da on ne uleti u to, jer on će mu to nametnuti tu stvar, a možda i njima lakše tako. Da mu kažem da mi nismo spremni na nikakve političke razgovore daljnje, prije što se neke mjere vojnog dezangažovanja sprovedu.
For most of his life, Alija Izetbegović has been a man of letters, not of action. Perhaps that was his central weakness. Just over a year ago, when his country's independence was recognised by the West, he believed that the fine words of the UN Charter meant something. Since then, his nation has been torn apart, his people driven from their homes, massacred and raped. The international arms embargo has left the Muslims at the mercy of the Bosnian Serbs, who were armed and supplied by next-door Serbia. Despite its name, the United Nations Protection Force, UNPROFOR, has had no mandate to use force and therefore has protected no one. Often it's failed to do even the job it was sent to do, get aid convoys through to the victims of the war. Were you given assurances by President Bush when you had your referendum for a creation of Bosnia-Herzegovina? Were you given assurances by the US President that you would have their backing?
I have to be honest and to say that I have had no assurances, specific official assurances by Bush, neither by Bush or by anyone there. But there is, you said President Bush. President Bush, I remember, said in the Helsinki conference that, for example, that a humanitarian convoy would be protected no matter, it's literally, no matter what it takes. That wasn't happened. And there are in Žepa, only in Žepa, there are 8,000 children. They are dying from hunger. And no one can do anything here. That's a pity.
But somehow, amidst the trauma, the business of government must go on. Only a few kilometres away in the town of Pale, the self-styled Bosnian Serb parliament was meeting on whether to endorse the Athens peace plan. Meantime, the president of Bosnia was meeting his council engineers. The subject, the future of his broken nation's electricity grid. But the president's mind was elsewhere. News was filtering in that the town of Žepa was under fierce attack by Serbs. Its defences were crumbling. What had happened at Srebrenica, he feared, was happening again.
News coming now, this morning, shows that the Serbian military forces break the front lines in many points there, and they enter in the area of Žepa, and they are killing all what they find there. So the situation is very difficult and very sad, tragic.
To many, Alija Izetbegović himself is a tragic figure, a nice man, ill-equipped for the brutal politics of the Balkans. He hasn't even managed to hold together the crucial alliance between the Muslims and the Croats. The week before, fighting erupted between Croats and Muslims. Hundreds were made homeless or simply massacred. Yet he clings stubbornly to the dream of a sovereign, multi-ethnic state. The makeup of his personal bodyguard is a statement to his enemies: 12 Serbs, 16 Croats and 46 Muslims. They're representative of thousands of his people across the Republic, Serbs, Croats and Muslims, who want to be simply Bosnian. But they're also a telling reminder of the impotence of the government forces, starved of arms, basic equipment, even a decent pair of boots. Early the next day, the news came through from the Bosnian Serb Assembly in Pale.
The vote was finally taken at 4:15 in the morning. By a majority of more than 5 to 1, the Vance-Owen plan was not accepted, but deferred to a referendum in 10 days' time.
For the Bosnian president, the Serb decision came almost as a relief. Surely he felt this was the final straw. Surely now the West would act.
We need arms. That's first. And also, I think that international community or United States Security Council have to order the attack, airstrikes against concentration of artillery, heavy artillery, and stores and arms stores and the roads for supply.
Those who oppose lifting the arms embargo and airstrikes say that both those measures will make matters worse. What's your reaction to that?
We are watching the scenario of this policy for a year. The results is, as I said, quite evident. It's 200,000 people killed, many hundred thousand people expelled from their homes, 100,000 towns and villages destroyed. That's a consequence of such a policy, of the policy of indifference and of delay and of the postponing of the decision and of hesitation.
In the hills to the north of Sarajevo, the Bosnian army holds a fragile front line against the Serbs.
We are going now to first line. Are you going to go? As you like.
The Bosnians have little more than assault rifles and mortars to answer the enemy's tanks and heavy artillery.
To je bilo ukratko. Ispred nas se nalazi selo Sokolje. To je isključivo muslimansko. Neki 4.000 civila je živjelo prije rata. Oni su tu 3 puta.
Koje je to Sokolje? Ono tamo?
Odmah ovdje ispred nas, skršeno sve. Aha. I prva i druga linija, znači 3 puta su žestoko udarali, zadnji put 18. marta. Trajalo je 48 sati. Palo je oko 5.000 projektila. Sa svih strana.
Only a fraction of Bosnia remains under Mr. Izetbegović's control, and a good part of that is in ruins.
There is no one house which is not damaged. All houses was damaged, was destroyed or damaged. You see.
The president's minders took him for a closer look. The Serb trenches were less than 200 metres away.
Mr. President, could you explain the situation just here?
Here, they are trying to break the lines here. You see that
Yeah, there are Chetniks all around the hill.
All around here, just now, and they are trying to take these villages, and that villages was destroyed, but they was removed.
Ajde, povedi, nek snimaju liniju ako ćemo.
He wants you to go.
Jer oni ako nas uoče za pola sata ne mogu doći artiljeriji. Ćemo se vratiti posle ovdje na kafu. Gospodine predsjedniče, stanje u zoni odgovornosti druge viteške motorizirane brigade redovno, reportira zamjenik komandanta Isuć.
As the president met the half-trained volunteers struggling to maintain his crumbling borders, the outside world was dithering. Following their decision at Pale, President Clinton had launched a scathing attack on the Bosnian Serbs and threatened military intervention. But he insisted America would not act alone.
America has made its position clear and is ready to do its part. But Europe must be willing to act with us. We must go forward together.
But both Britain and France have thousands of their own young men and women in Bosnia. They may have no mandate to protect Bosnian civilians, but the very presence of UN troops ensures that their governments will oppose airstrikes. These soldiers, vulnerable to Serb reprisals, are an effective hostage against the world.
And maybe Beneš before Second World War felt in the same way.
It's a revealing comparison. Beneš was the leader of Czechoslovakia in 1938, when Britain and France surrendered his country to Hitler's Germany without a fight in the infamous Munich Agreement.
I'm not Beneš, but Izetbegović, but the situation is the same. And how this moral weakness of the international community faced with aggression, with the aggressor forces, then with Hitler, now with other forces, new kind of fascism, a new kind of racism, is the same. And I believe, I hope, that maybe one Churchill would come, finally. instead of chamberlains or many chamberlains and so on.
Instead of Churchill, Mr. Izetbegović had to deal with General Philippe Morillon.
I'm in the sun myself every day. I'm on the ground, you know.
The next day, the commander of the UN forces in Bosnia came to the president with a proposal. The Serbs were on the point of taking the eastern town of Žepa. Hundreds of lives were at risk. Morillon had received authority from the Security Council to declare Žepa and 5 other cities, including Sarajevo, safe areas. After spending an hour with the president, Morillon spelt out to us what he took that to mean.
What I have put very clear with the president and with Mladic today is that once the area under the protection of UNPROFOR, every attack will be retaliated, naturally.
So you have
so I will have to have the necessary means, and I will ask for. But it's very clear that we have now a new mission that is a real military one, to react, to retaliate.
How much manpower do you need for getting this assignment, and how soon can we expect them?
Oh, I need a lot.
But the president and his generals were unimpressed. They didn't believe that General Morillon would get a lot more men. Without them, the promise of protection was empty. Besides, the proposal required the Bosnian forces to surrender its weapons in all 6 towns, including Izetbegović's own capital. Next morning, Mr. Izetbegović told the cameras why the Safe Areas Agreement hadn't been signed.
Because in practice, they required the full capitulation of our forces in that area.
Thank you.
How much time do you still have?
But that wasn't the end of General Morillon's problems. As the press conference broke up, Mr. Izetbegović was told he was needed outside the palace. A crowd of angry refugees from Žepa, desperate about relatives trapped inside the town, had blockaded the UN commander's car in the president's forecourt. Morillon wanted to go to Pale to talk to the Serbs. The crowd was demanding not talk, but action.
General Morillon je rekao I rezolucija Ujedinjenih nacija 824 daje mu pravo da upotrijebi silu. Zašto se sad to ne primjeni što mu je svijet dao, što su Ujedinjene nacije dale to pravo da se tako uradi?
Non mais ils peuvent faire tout ce qu'ils veulent. Ils ont accepté un cessez-le-feu et je veux avoir ce soir des forces, pas seulement des observateurs, une compagnie déployée à Žepa. Et chaque minute que vous me faites perdre, c'est du temps perdu pour vous.
Je li to garancija da će vaši ljudi otići dole? Pustite, neka ide.
It was an episode that illustrated all too well the frustration and helplessness the UN commander must so often feel. But the refugees and the citizens of Sarajevo itself are frustrated too. And frustration is turning to anger, not just with the UN, but with their own government.
That was, I don't know, our presidents, our government says we're doing everything to stop the war, but you see, half in 1 year, we're just dying here one by one, just waiting, like these people, waiting to be dead.
But as long as the arms embargo exists, the Bosnian Muslims have no choice. They must rely on the United Nations, despite its record so far. But there's something else working against the Bosnians. It's that word Muslims. In many Western minds, it conjures up images of turban fanatics, of ayatollahs and imams, a culture scornful of Western decadence, dismissive of Western liberal values.
But Bosnia's Muslims tend to be Europeans first and Muslims a long way second. Every night, Sarajevo's last surviving disco is crowded with young Muslim men and women. Most of the men and some of the women are off-duty soldiers. fanatical mujahideen, they're not. Less than 5% of Bosnian Muslims attend the mosques. Alija Izetbegović is an exception. Each Friday he's driven through his battered capital to one or another of the city's mosques. Agitating for Muslim rights under Tito's communists earned him 14 years in prison. His Islamic declaration in the 80s called for an Islamic state in Bosnia. The book has been fodder for Serbs who accuse him of being a closet fundamentalist. But it's hard to reconcile the image of a Muslim extremist with the man who walks the streets of the old city each Friday after mosque. It's a security man's nightmare, not just the threat of shells and snipers, but the danger of assassination in a city where thousands of Serbs and Croats still live unmolested. But Mr. Izetbegović is determined to see and be seen. What Mr. Izetbegovic's critics accuse him of most is naivety. He believed the Serbs would accept a united, independent Bosnia and fail to prepare for the worst. And when that hope was brutally dashed, he believed the West would act to protect him. Now he's a disillusioned man. Both he and his people are genuinely baffled that the rich and powerful nations of the world can talk so much and do so little.
Maybe that's a problem of society, maybe of the situation, the moral situation in the world, of the rich, wealth, living in comfort. Maybe that's, I can explain it.
But there's little time in Bosnia today for philosophical musing. Pushed by his own generals and tired of ineffective Western mediators, Alija Izetbegović has changed. At the end of his visit to the front line, I asked him a question through our interpreter, to be sure there could be no misunderstanding.
Dva bedna pitanja hoću da pitam. A ja vam reću unapred.
Jedno pitanje.
One question.
One question, because I'm in a hurry.
Jedno je,
You know, that's the problem with my English.
Da pravite, da vam ja kažem što ću unapred. Alternativu.
Would he opt for a lifting of the arms embargo and airstrikes against the Serbs, even if that meant that all humanitarian aid was stopped and all UN troops withdrawn from Bosnia? His reply was unequivocal.
If you want to answer in Bosnia, if we have to choose between military solution through airstrikes and lifting of embargo and humanitarian aid, no. we have no problem. We are for airstrikes and to finish this agony with military action.
The events of the past year, the brutal devastation of his once beautiful country, have turned the pacifist into a warrior. For Alija Izetbegović, there remains only one simple question. Will the world help his people to fight, or must they fight on alone?
Max Utridge, literally on the front line in Bosnia, a piece of television journalism put together in the most testing of circumstances.